Hello, Tungsten Miner here. Today I'm doing a mod spotlight on a mod called Better Diving. It's in its early stages, I'll warn you, so there's a lot of things that don't feel quite complete. However, it's one of the only mods that I have found out there which gives you a technological rather than magical way of breathing underwater. And what's there is really, really good. So I'm hopeful that the author continues to work on it and rounds out all of the rough edges. So let's jump in. In these chests, I have what would be the basic equipment for diving. So you've got a diving mask, standard O2 tank, wetsuit leggings, and fins. And then you've got a reinforced version of all of those, which just gives you more armor. It's the same capacities, the same speed, and so forth, but more armor. And then over here, we've got some equipment which gives you greater capacity. So what do I mean by that? Well, when we look at this standard O2 tank and we look at this O2 tank, they're the same amount of time underwater, basically. But when we look at this one, it's a high capacity tank and a rebreather. So this gives you a lot more time underwater. And we'll try these both out and see the differences. And then the wetsuit leggings allow you to move faster when you're mining, so you can break things faster. And then this gives you the same, except more protection. And this gives you faster breaking things, but not the extra protection. And then finally, the fins allow you to actually move faster in underwater. These ones do the same, but with more protection. And there isn't actually an extra set of fins that make you go faster. There's only the, oh no, I'm wrong, Ultra Glide fins. I thought I missed something. Then there's the Ultra Glide fins, which allow you to actually go faster than the regular fins. So you've got kind of the base set of equipment, and then you can either choose to go in the more protective direction or in the greater capacity direction. So let's just jump in with these diving mask things here, and I'm going to put those on. We can see the model for these is actually kind of nice, somewhat detailed, still see your character a bit. And we're going to jump into my little pool over here. And as soon as I go underwater, game mode survival, we can see that I've got this little indicator next to my HUD, which tells me how many seconds of air I have remaining. And I'm just pressing forward. And as I angle my mouse around, you can see I move in that direction. So swimming has become a lot more fluid and smooth. And in fact, if I just kind of use the spacebar to get myself on the surface and do nothing else, I'm not touching any of my controls, I'm just kind of hovering here in the water, so no more bobbing up and down in the water. And when I go back under again, you can see I've got my however many seconds worth of air. This is true even when I'm not wearing any of this equipment. So both of these changes remain in effect. However, I'm moving a bit slower now underwater, and you can see that I've got a lot less oxygen capacity. So let's go up and swap. Throw these back up here. We'll grab all these, put those back on. Now I've got the higher capacity equipment. You can see my air meter refilled itself because that tank initially is empty and now it's all filled up. So there's no machine to fill your tank. It just automatically fills when you're out of the water. So if I stay here long enough to let things kind of go down, and I pop my head up, watch that meter as I break the surface of the water. You see how it just filled itself back up again? So that's how this thing works. There's no machine to refill your oxygen tanks. Not exactly realistic. I would kind of hope that that gets added eventually. But it's actually fairly easy mechanic to use. And some definite care has been put into making things look nice and the thoughtfulness of how the different items work. Let's talk about raw materials. So this mod introduces a lot of world gen of its own and doesn't really integrate with other mods very well. It's something else I kind of hope is temporary, and we'll get to something that works more well integrated with other mods. But for now, it adds sandstone outcrops as just rocks you'll find in the sand on the ocean floor, and then limestone outcrops. And both of these, when you break them, have a certain probability of giving you certain metals back again. So your sandstone outcrops are going to give you lead, silver, and gold. and your limestone outcrops are going to give you titanium and copper ore. And these, of course, are the raw materials you need to make all of the stuff we were just looking at. And you'll notice I've got 10 of these here, and I took 10 of these and just randomly broke them in my swimming pool over here, and this is what I got out again. So I won't claim that these are always the proportions you'll get, but this seems to be roughly the proportions that you get. The other thing I've got in this chest are these creep vines. These grow as long kind of kelp-like plants that root themselves in the ocean floor in big bunches. And I'll do a little video with a non-super flat world so we can kind of get a sense of what these look like. But the notion is you'll have these tall plants, most of which will be these creep vine just leaves. And then in the center, there'll be this glowing cluster of creep vine seed clusters. So if we go back here and take a peek at the recipes for these things, it needs some glass and this fiber mesh. The fiber mesh being made up of 2 of these creep vine samples. For the tank, you need titanium, which you get from the rocks. Your wetsuit leggings are silicone rubber, which you get just from these creep vine cluster seeds. You get 2 of those. A little bit of titanium and some more of that fiber mesh. And then the fins are just the silicone rubber. As you get into the more sophisticated equipment, you need more sophisticated stuff. So you start with a diving mask and then add diamonds and titanium and other stuff to it. Same thing for the reinforced tank, same thing for the reinforced leggings and so on. To go over to the more capable equipment, you're basically going to add different stuff. The recipes work pretty much the same way. You're just adding silver, titanium, and other things instead. So you're using all the same materials throughout all these different things. You're just using them in different combinations to add on to give yourself the more capable equipment. So that's the world gen that you get with this. If we move over here, there's a couple of incomplete-ish feeling objects that you're allowed to use. These are, well, vehicles, I guess, is for lack of a better word. So your sea moth is based upon the same item from Terrarium, or no, I forget the game now. It's not Terrarium. Somebody will remind, Subnautica. So you take this guy and you just drop it in the world. So here's your battery. You can have upgrades, but I don't think there are any upgrades quite yet. So drop this thing in here somewhere. Come on, there we go. And now we can see we've got this little micro submarine here. So if I just right click on the submarine, I can now zoom around and you can see it's giving me a sense of the temperature, how much power is left in this thing. We've got, you notice my oxygen is not depleting even though I'm underwater. Oops. So if you burst out of the water, you get knocked out. And if I left shift, I jump out and now my my oxygen is depleting again. And this is just going to kind of hang in the water wherever I happen to have left it. So this thing is really, really handy for getting around in the world without depleting your oxygen underwater. And then when you hop into it, your oxygen gets refilled for 1, and you don't have it deplete for 2. So it's a good idea, if you're using this mod, to use one of these things to get to where you want to go to do whatever work you want to do, and then hop out again. You can't harvest things from in here, of course. So you will need to hop out to be able to go do whatever you're going to do. Jump out of here, and I'm going to grab this Sea Glide. This one works just by being underwater. And you can see I go way, way faster underwater, even faster than with a submarine, which is now in my way. So no power, no kind of nothing to do with this. It's just makes you go super, super fast. The mod author is still very much working on these things. So it's going to be work in progress for a while, I suspect. But I really, really like where this thing has started out. So not a ton else to look at. Here's the list of all the items that the mod adds. And you can see there's a lot of work in progress here and work in progress there. And that's obviously a work in progress texture. You can make yourself a sea base ladder, which is kind of a cool thing. Right, so if I stick this here, looks very cool, but that's not really tying into anything else quite yet. There's a bunch of fish, which I don't actually ever see spawn in the world. So I'm not sure what that's all about, probably still work in progress. There's some wiring kits, which doesn't really get used at anything. So yeah, lots of stuff that's kind of getting there. But really, really good so far, and I really hope the mod author carries on. So I'm going to take a quick pause here, jump over into a regular world, and we'll go have a little bit of a look at how the world gen works. Be right back. Okay, back again. I am now in just a default vanilla Minecraft world. Pretty much the only mod installed is the Better Diving mod, so we're seeing, all the usual stuff. Except, of course, you can see in front of me here, we've got a bit of a bay with obviously some new stuff underwater. And we can see little glowing bits here, and we can see some tall plants there. I'm going to take some night vision potions so we can actually get a better glance at what we're doing here. And we can see underwater, there's a lot of new sea life in the form of these little seaweeds. Most of these don't do anything, they're just for decoration. But these little mushroom guys are the acid mushrooms that you use as part of the battery recipe. And as we go along, we can see here is some of the seaweed that gets used as making part of the silicone recipes. So that's this creepvine sample, and then the glowing bits will give you these creepvine seed clusters, both of which are useful. Then as we go along a little bit further here, there we go. There's some of them. So these are the sandstone, I think, or limestone, one or the other. Limestone or sandstone outcrops. Looks like limestone, sandstone, limestone. And remember, if you break one of these, it'll give you a little chunk of metal. So it's kind of this mod's version of adding its own ores. So you can see they're scattered not too thickly, but they're around on the sandy bottom of the ocean. So that's the world gen that you get. You get these little mushrooms, the seaweeds, the creep vines, and the little rocks. And that's it for the Better Diving mod. Very cool mod. I have been using it in the Ad Astra mod pack, where I replaced a lot of the recipes to work better with other mods. And that's made it a really, really useful addition. So that's it for now. See you next time.